and I'm having conversations with candidates who are running in Loudon County, and this is non-biased, non-tied to anything. This is just simple questions I'm going to ask, and we're going to have a conversation. I'd like to say thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And to begin, if you'll just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, what seat you're running for, and the party, since it's a general election.
Hi, I'm Bob Gross. I'm the Republican nominee for the Loudon County Commissioner District 1 Seat B.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What personal, professional, volunteer, or community experience has prepared you to serve on the Loudon County Commission?
Okay, well, I'm a retired federal law enforcement officer. I spent 26 years with U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and before that, the U.S. Immigration and Naturalization Service. I worked on the Mexican border. I worked overseas at U.S. embassies in Panama, Mexico, and Trinidad as a police attaché.
Oh, wow.
I worked as an instructor at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. I also served as a chief watch commander at the Customs and Border Protection National Targeting Center, which basically controls all U.S. borders.
Oh, wow.
I have proven experience in negotiating international and local agreements, state agreements also, memorandums of understanding, and managing complex, large operations and law enforcement programs over the years. And I believe that my experience will enable me to work very well here as a Loudon County Commissioner.
Okay, so what motivated you to run for county commission, and why do you feel right now is the time to serve?
Well, I'm running for the Loudon County Commission to represent all of the county as an experienced public servant and to bring a fresh conservative perspective to the commission. My wife and I chose Loudon County as our forever home. We want to make it even better. It's a great place to live, work, and play, and I would like to protect the citizens of Loudon County, just like to help to protect the U.S. borders in public safety in my career. I have a varied background, as I already mentioned. I live in Loudon County. I have a master's degree from the University of Alabama, and I'm fluent in Spanish and speak several other languages a little bit. And I think I bring a different kind of perspective to the whole program. I believe in the U.S. Constitution, the 10 Commandments, and that your rights come from the Creator, not the government. It's the government's job to protect your rights, not to give you rights.
So, looking ahead over the next 4 years, what do you believe are the biggest issues that are going to come before the commission?
Well, there's a lot of issues here in the county, of course. Over growth, over development is an issue. It puts a strain on the current infrastructure. So I'm not against growth. I'm not against development. I am against unplanned growth and development that is detrimental to the county. We need to think of how our infrastructure works before we just decide to do things. Also, with the recent tax increase, I believe our citizens have been taxed enough, and I pledge to oppose tax increases. I'm concerned about data centers. I think AI data centers are very dangerous to our county. Why? Well, data centers use tremendous amounts of electrical resources as well as water resources. They create electromagnetic pollution as well as noise pollution, but they don't really bring a lot of jobs. The only jobs involved in a data center are the initial construction, which are often outside persons. And once the center is up and running, it doesn't really bring any kind of real tax revenue or employment opportunities for the community, but it does use resources and drive electric and water rates through the roof. So I stand very strongly against data centers. I'm a strong supporter of law enforcement. I spent 3 decades in law enforcement. Obviously, I back our police, our fire, our EMTs, our 911 dispatchers. I think we need to continue to make sure that our public safety improves. I think that's an issue. I'm also, as a former officer of immigration, I'm very concerned about illegal immigration in the county. I'm a strong supporter of the Sheriff's 287G program, which removes criminal aliens from the county. I do believe that criminal aliens are a problem here in the county. We also have problems with fentanyl and methamphetamine abuse, with drug abuse, and this area being used as a corridor for narcotics. I spent a lot of years in narcotics enforcement, and I think I can bring a good perspective to assist our Sheriff's Department and our individual police departments within the county. Another issue that's important is the Matlock Bend landfill. It needs to be addressed, it needs attention. I am opposed to selling it because it is our property, and if we do sell the landfill, then we have no real legal recourse over it other than costly lawsuits, and we also lose $500,000 or $600,000 a year in tipping fees, which then is income to the Solid Waste Commission.
So a lot of times, local government, less about the political world, how negative it gets, more about policy. What are your top priorities if elected, and then how do you plan to achieve them? How do you plan to go about it? But I do have another question since you just mentioned it. Matlock Bend, is that within District 1?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
yes,
all right,
it's
so,
District 1.
But sorry, back to the original question. What are the top priorities, and that may be one of them, and how do you plan to achieve kind of going about stuff?
Well, first is fiscal conservatism. Obviously, you can't spend money you don't have. I'm very concerned that throughout the United States we have a rise in socialism, and to quote Margaret Thatcher, the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money to spend. So we have to spend our own money, not other people's. It's very important. I believe that public safety and greater support for first responders. We have great first responders here in the county, awesome, but they can always use more resources and other factors. Assisting the Sheriff's Department in their application of the 287G program. I'm an expert on it. I spent 30 years working in that field. I think it's important that we deal with the trash dump issue. We do not want to become the trash dump of the region, nor the data center focus of the region. As I said, I'm against selling the landfill, and I'm against any kind of AI data centers within our county. I believe it's important that we improve our educational system to assist our young people to stay here, to get good paying jobs and be qualified for them and remain in the county so they don't just flee the second they graduate high school. It's very, very important.
So, you ran against an incumbent, and how politics are. It's easy to get negative, and everyone does it. How would you describe the current state of Loudon County, and what do you believe the county's doing well?
Well, the county's a great place to live.
Right.
After all, as I said, my wife and I chose this to be our forever home. We looked all over. We've lived all over the world, my wife and I. We've lived 10 years overseas. I was deployed at U.S. embassies in Panama, Mexico, and Trinidad. I've traveled over 35 countries in the service of my government. And so I've seen an awful lot of places. And I've lived in a lot of states in the U.S. I was born in Pennsylvania, but I've lived most of my adult life in the U.S. in the southern states. But I do believe that this is the place we chose to live, and that this is a great place. However, there are issues that need to be addressed, of course. In order to address some of these issues, we have to learn to work together. Not everybody's going to agree with everybody else, but we have 10 people on the commission, and then we have a county mayor, and we have city mayors, and we have city police departments, county sheriffs, different fire departments. We all need to work together. This is one county. This is not a bunch of little different balkanized places. I've been to the old Yugoslavia, literally, and I know what it's like. I worked in Eastern Europe after I retired, in Macedonia and Croatia, and I know exactly what it's like when you have a supposed one community that's all broken up and divided, where people argue amongst themselves. We must work together. As Ben Franklin once said, we must hang together lest we all hang separately.
So, you had mentioned a moment ago, but I'll ask this. As you look at the county's current financial situation, do you believe another property tax increase is likely or necessary?
Well, I'm against property tax increases. We just had a big one. We don't need another one right away. Of course not. With proper fiscal management, I believe that we can avoid further increases.
Okay. And you mentioned this earlier as well. Growth continues to be the biggest topic in Loudon County, I think, by everybody. Do you believe the county's current zoning and land use policies are sufficient, or do you believe some changes should be considered?
Well, I believe we need more long-range planning and assessments, to read more assessments and have them conducted so we understand the implications of future projects. Mm-hmm. When you just do something and you don't look at proper assessments and studies, then what can happen is all of a sudden you find a whole new set of problems you didn't even predict. So I do believe, we have good zoning policies, we do, but we need more long-range planning and budgeting too. They go hand in hand.
Right. And you touched on this too. Loudon County works alongside several municipalities, including Loudon, Lenoir City, Philadelphia, Greenback. How do you feel those relationships are working today? And are there ways the cooperation between the county and its municipalities could be improved?
I think it can be improved. In my viewpoint, coming from living in other states where you don't have separate cities within the county that fight with the county, we do have some contentious issues between the county and the city. We shouldn't have any. We all live in Loudon County, whether it's Philadelphia, Greenback, Lenore City, or Loudon City. We're all residents of the same county. We should all be working together. And I believe that what affects one city affects the whole county and vice versa.
Right.
So we need to work together.
So to continue the theme of partnership and community, and you had mentioned at the top that you are running on the Republican side. How do you believe political party affiliation and politics should influence or would influence your day-to-day governance? Do you believe you can effectively represent and serve all districts? Because this district is kind of split, or not split, but it has other viewpoints within it.
Well, I'm a conservative Republican. I don't make any bones about that. And I adhere to the basics of the Republican Party, which are limited government, respect for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, respect for the U.S. Constitution, protecting your Second Amendment rights, critical, absolutely critical, fiscal responsibility, sound governance that combats illegal immigration, human trafficking, and narcotics smuggling and abuse. These policies, they're not just policies of the Republican Party. They benefit all citizens, regardless of political affiliation. But I will say this, the political affiliation of the candidates is important, because when you register and run as a Republican, you are saying that you believe in the tenets of the Republican Party, not only locally, but nationally. Conversely, if you register as a Democrat, you're saying you believe in what the Democrats are doing in America today, which I do not. Independents are independent. So you are saying what you are. If you don't believe in the tenets of your party, you should run as an independent, not as a Republican or a Democrat.
So at the end of your first term, what does success look like? How would you hope voters describe your service to the community?
Well, I'd like to prevent tax increases.
Okay.
Obviously, if I'm elected, I'm only one voice on the commission.
Right.
I think a key element is to create long-range planning and budgeting that keeps our county financially healthy and prevents reckless development, improves our public safety, our public services, and our infrastructure, and to ensure that all the citizens in the county are represented and have participation in our future. Everybody has a right to talk to their commissioners. The commissioners work for the public. The public doesn't work for the commissioners.
Without discussing your opponents, because you are in a race that's contested, what sets you apart as a candidate? Why should voters choose you?
Well, I have years of experience in enforcing the law, developing programs, and negotiating international, national, state, and local agreements, and managing complex national and international operations. During my years in Panama as the attaché at the U.S. Embassy, I designed, created, and obtained the funding for the joint U.S.-Panama APIS program, which has successfully interdicted hundreds of criminals and terrorists traveling throughout the region and protected our borders. As a part of a joint international operation, I also identified and seized $9 million in illicit money transfers that were destined to Middle Eastern terrorists. In 2017, as part of a high-level U.S. DOJ delegation, I traveled to Beijing, China, as a representative of the U.S. government, where we successfully negotiated with the Chinese Ministry of Public Security for them to outlaw the manufacturing of fentanyl analogs, which has been a tremendous problem. Fentanyl is a real problem in America, but for a while, it was legal for the Chinese to manufacture fentanyl analogs, which were not illegal in the United States, and they were being smuggled in legally, in a sense, and we couldn't stop part of that fentanyl epidemic. Now we still have a serious epidemic of fentanyl abuse, but we've at least shaved a big part of it off. I mention these things that I've done because it shows that I've experienced it dealing with high-level individuals up to the levels of presidents of nations, and I can bring that same kind of experience here on the local level of dealing with various departments, police departments, fire departments, mayors. I have a long background in dealing with public officials of all different kinds of people. So I believe I bring that to my background, and between that and my view on things here in the county, I think that will really help, and I will be a great commissioner.
Okay, well, to close, I'm going to tell the election dates. The early voting starts July 17th through August 1st. Weekdays 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturdays 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Election day August 6th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But for folks in part of your district, and not just for them, but convenience-wise, Community Church at Telco Village, July 22nd and July 23rd will also have early voting. And I just want to say thanks for having this conversation with me.
Well, thank you very much. And again, I'm the Republican candidate running in the general election. I appreciate your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.